Sergeant Maya Henderson was no stranger to sacrifice. For years she served on the front lines, a decorated soldier known for her courage and unwavering determination. The battlefield was a place she understood well, a world of chaos where every decision mattered and every second counted. But nothing could have prepared her for the battle she would face at home. After a roadside explosion during her final deployment, Maya's life changed forever. The blast left her with severe injuries, a shattered leg and damage to her spine that confined her to a wheelchair. The physical pain was one thing, but the invisible wounds cut deeper. Nightmares haunted her sleep, and memories of war shadowed her days. Yet Maya was determined. She wanted to rebuild her life, to find normalcy, and to heal. Her return to civilian life, however, was anything but smooth. The town she came back to felt unfamiliar, and she struggled with feelings of isolation. The once supportive community seemed to look past her now, unsure how to connect with the woman who had changed so much. The friends she had before were distant, and Maya found herself battling loneliness alongside her injuries. On a cold autumn afternoon, everything spiraled. Maya needed medication to manage her pain, a small but vital part of keeping her life together. At the local pharmacy, tension filled the air. A long line of impatient customers stretched toward the door, and the pharmacist was overwhelmed. Maya waited patiently, her wheelchair parked near the counter, when a man behind her began pushing and shouting. Words turned to anger quickly. The man, frustrated and aggressive, bumped into Maya's wheelchair. She tried to stay calm, reminding herself to breathe. But when he grabbed her bag, believing she was taking too long, Maya's instincts took over. She reached out to stop him, and a scuffle broke out. A loud crash echoed as a shelf toppled, and someone called the police. Within hours, Maya's life had turned upside down. The man accused her of assault. The police arrested her on the spot. News spread fast. Headlines labeled her as a threat, a danger, even a criminal. People whispered about the decorated veteran who had lost control, forgetting the years she had served and the wounds she carried. Maya sat in a cold holding cell, her heart pounding. Confused and terrified, she thought about what this meant. She hadn't wanted violence only to protect herself, but the system didn't see the nuance. It saw the scars in the wheelchair and the police report. Her court date came quickly. The prosecutor painted a grim picture, a violent woman with a troubled mind. Evidence piled up, much of it circumstantial. Her fingerprints were on the weapon involved in the incident, a small knife the man had dropped during the fight. Witnesses described seeing Maya act aggressively. None mentioned the chaos that had led to the struggle or the man's own aggressive behavior. The judge seemed unmoved by her explanations or by the letters from fellow veterans and commanders who vouched for her character. The community that once cheered for Maya now looked at her with suspicion. The pain she carried was invisible to them. All they saw was a woman accused of a violent crime. As the trial progressed, Maya's health deteriorated. The stress was unbearable. She spent sleepless nights in jail, haunted by the possibility of losing everything she had fought for. But through it all, one constant remained: her service dog, Thor. Thor was trained to support Maya through the darkest moments, sensing her fears and offering comfort. Even when she was alone in a cell, images of Thor's gentle eyes gave her a strength. The bond between them was unbreakable, forged in fire and loyalty. Yet no matter how much Maya wished for a different outcome, the judge handed down a devastating verdict: guilty. The sentence was death by lethal injection, a punishment, harsh beyond belief for a woman who had served her country with honor. Maya's world collapsed in an instant. She stared blankly, unable to believe the words she had just heard. The fight wasn't over, not yet, but the weight of despair threatened to crush her spirit. Behind the cold walls of the prison, Thor waited faithfully. The dog didn't understand the full story, but he knew his owner needed him more than ever. And as Maya faced the darkest hour of her life, no one could have predicted that Thor's loyalty would uncover a secret capable of saving her and changing everything. The courtroom was packed the day Maya Henderson's trial began. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and a crowd gathered hungry for answers and drama. Maya sat quietly, her hands resting on her lap, the weight of her past and present pressing down on her. She was no longer just a decorated veteran. In this room, she was a defendant fighting for her life. From the start, the atmosphere was hostile. The prosecution wasted no time painting a bleak picture. They called her volatile, dangerous, and unpredictable, words that cut deeper than any wound. The defense lawyer tried to remind the court of Maya's honorable military record, the trauma she endured overseas, and her struggle with PTSD. But those arguments barely registered. Evidence was presented with a sharp edge. The prosecution showed the small knife found on the floor of the pharmacy, the man's broken glasses and photos of the scene, chaotic and tense. Then came the fingerprints. Maya's prints were on the weapon, no dispute there. The prosecution argued it proved her guilt beyond doubt. The defense countered Maya had picked up the knife during the scuffle to protect herself and others. Witnesses took the stand, one after another. The man who had confronted Maya described her as aggressive and unhinged. His story was emotional, but inconsistent in details. Another witness, a woman waiting in line, claimed to have seen Maya lash out. The defense's witnesses were fewer, but powerful. A fellow veteran who spoke of Maya's kindness and courage, a military therapist who explained how PTSD affected her reactions. Despite this, doubt was overshadowed by public opinion. The media painted Maya as a danger to society, highlighting the fact she was confined to a wheelchair. Many didn't stop to think about the complexity of her situation or the battle she was still fighting inside herself. In the court of public opinion, the veteran was losing before the final verdict. The prosecution's closing argument was chilling. This woman may have served her country, but today she threatens the safety of our community, the district attorney said firmly. Her actions endangered lives, and she must be held accountable, no exceptions. The defense lawyer pleaded for mercy, emphasizing Maya's service and trauma, the lack of clear intent to harm and the possibility of a tragic misunderstanding. But the judge seemed unmoved. The law, it seemed, was blind to the personal battles Maya fought every day. As the jury retired to deliberate, Maya sat silently, her mind racing. She replayed every moment, the explosion overseas, the pain she endured, the confrontation at the pharmacy, and wondered how it had all led here. She thought about her family, long estranged, and the friends who had drifted away. Most of all, she thought about Thor waiting for her outside. Hours later, the jury returned with a verdict. Guilty. The word echoed in the courtroom like a thunderclap. Maya's heart sank. The sentence was harsh, death by lethal injection, a punishment meant for the worst criminals. But Maya was no criminal. She was a soldier, a survivor, a woman broken but still fighting. The news hit like a tidal wave. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, some shouting for justice, others demanding mercy. Veterans groups organized rallies, trying to raise awareness of Maya's story. But in the halls of power, sympathy was scarce. Maya was transferred to a maximum security prison, a place where hope seemed distant. The cold walls and harsh routines contrasted sharply with the freedom she once knew. Every day felt like a countdown. Yet even in this darkest hour, Maya's spirit clung to a fragile thread of hope. She wrote letters to advocacy groups, contacted her lawyer relentlessly, and never stopped believing that the truth could still come to light. And through it all, Thor remained her guardian angel. The Golden Retriever's loyalty was unwavering, a beacon of comfort in an otherwise bleak existence. Though separated by prison walls, Thor's presence was felt in every quiet moment, reminding Maya she was not alone. Behind the scenes, her defense team began digging deeper, refusing to accept the verdict. They knew something was missing, something important that could turn the case around. But what? As the days passed, the legal battle was far from over. Maya's fate hung in the balance, a tense waiting game that tested her resolve. Every phone call, every visitor, every quiet night was a chance for a breakthrough or a heartbreaking loss. In the midst of this storm, a quiet hope began to stir, not in the courtroom, but in the bond between a woman and her dog. Thor's Unusual behavior hinted at a secret yet to be uncovered, a secret that could rewrite Maya's story and save her life. While Maya faced the cold, unyielding walls of the prison, her loyal companion Thor found himself in a new home. The golden retriever, trained to be more than just a pet, was her steadfast protector and emotional anchor. But now, separated by bars and distance, Thor's world had changed, and he didn't like it. After Maya's arrest, a former military dog handler named James stepped in. James had worked alongside Maya during her deployments and understood the bond between soldier and dog better than anyone. He promised to care for Thor until Maya's fate was decided, but from the moment Thor arrived, something felt off. Thor wasn't the same calm, well-trained dog James remembered. Instead, he was restless, pacing the room and refusing to settle. His ears perked at every sound. His nose sniffed the air as if searching for something unseen. James knew Thor was trying to communicate, though he couldn't yet understand what. The duffel bag Maya had carried with her the day of the incident was part of Thor's belongings, now in James's care. It was old, worn from years of use, and James kept it nearby, hoping to comfort the dog with a familiar scent. But Thor reacted strangely whenever the bag was near. He'd paw at it obsessively, whine softly, and even growl when James tried to move it away. Curious and concerned, James decided to investigate the bag more carefully. He unzipped it slowly, feeling the weight of every item inside. There were clothes, documents, and medical supplies, all normal for someone recovering from war injuries. But then James's hand brushed against something unusual, a small, hard object tucked into a secret pocket. Pulling it out, James discovered a tiny body camera. It was covered in dirt and scratches, clearly forgotten or overlooked. Maya had been given the camera for her safety after receiving threats post-deployment, but no one had mentioned it during the trial. It was supposed to be a way for her to record dangerous situations, a tool for protection. James cleaned the camera gently and tried to power it on. To his surprise, the device flickered to life. The screen showed recordings, some recent, some older. The discovery filled James with a sense of hope. If the camera had recorded anything from that day at the pharmacy, it could be the key to proving Maya's innocence. Meanwhile, Maya's days in prison blurred together, grueling, lonely, and filled with fear. Her thoughts often drifted to Thor, imagining his loyal eyes and warm presence. He was more than a dog. He was her best friend, the one who understood her without words. Despite the harsh environment, Maya found small moments of strength. She wrote letters, kept a journal, and clung to memories of better days. Yet her greatest worry was what would happen if the truth never came out. Back with James, the discovery of the camera marked a turning point. He carefully reviewed the footage, watching every second with growing disbelief. The recordings showed Maya at the pharmacy, not angry or violent, but calm and cautious. She was trying to de-escalate the situation even as tension mounted around. Then the camera captured a crucial moment. Another person entered the frame, a man who had never been mentioned in court. He dropped the knife on the floor and slipped away quickly, unnoticed by the police who arrived shortly after. Maya, it seemed, had picked up the weapon only after this mysterious figure fled. This footage was more than evidence. It was proof of a tragic misunderstanding, a detail that could change everything. James immediately contacted Maya's defense team, sharing the discovery. The lawyers were stunned. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. If admitted in court, the footage could dismantle the prosecution's case and save Maya from her grim fate. For the first time since the trial began, hope flickered in the darkest of places. Thor's strange behavior had led to the hidden truth. The bond between Maya and her dog was stronger than anyone had realized, and now it might be powerful enough to rewrite the ending. As the wheels of justice slowly turned, Maya clung to that hope. Though separated by walls and miles, the loyalty of a dog was about to change the course of her life. Thor's arrival at James's home was meant to be temporary, a safe place until Maya's legal battle was over. But from the first night, James noticed something was off. Thor, usually a calm and obedient companion, became restless and uneasy. Instead of curling up by the fireplace like any normal dog, he paced in circles, his nose close to the ground, sniffing relentlessly. At first, James thought Thor might be anxious from the change of environment. After all, dogs are creatures of habit, and the sudden separation from Maya, his beloved owner, could have unsettled him. But the behavior went beyond typical stress. Thor's eyes darted to the worn duffel bag Maya had carried everywhere. Every time James moved near the bag, Thor growled softly, a low rumble that meant something important was being guarded. James tried to comfort Thor, speaking in soothing tones and offering treats, but nothing calmed the dog. Thor's instincts told him that something was hidden in plain sight, something he needed his human to find. Over several days, Thor's behavior grew more focused. He began scratching at the bag's seams, pawing insistently at a small section near the bottom. At times, Thor sat beside the bag, refusing to leave, almost as if waiting for someone or something. James, experienced with military dogs, but still learning to read Thor's subtle cues, finally decided to examine the bag thoroughly. He laid it on the floor and carefully inspected every pocket, zipper, and lining. When he found the hidden compartment, he was surprised to discover a small, bulky object. It was a body camera, small, battered, and covered with dust. Maya had never mentioned it, and it had not been introduced during her trial. James felt a surge of hope. Maybe this forgotten device held the key to the truth. Charging the camera and pressing the power button, James was relieved to see the screen flicker to life. The battery was low, but still functional enough to play back video. As the footage loaded, James's eyes widened. The video showed Maya on the day of the incident at the pharmacy. Contrary to the prosecution's portrayal, she wasn't angry or aggressive. Instead, the camera captured her trying to calm a tense situation. Her voice was gentle but firm. She moved carefully through the crowded space, trying to diffuse the rising conflict. Suddenly, the footage revealed something crucial. A man unknown to the court appeared in the frame. He dropped the weapon, a small knife, and slipped away before anyone noticed. Maya picked up the knife not to threaten, but to prevent harm. This was a game changer. The camera had captured the real story, the one missing from the trial and the media reports. As James continued to watch, he realized how much this evidence could shift the case. It showed Maya's innocence and the misunderstanding that led to her arrest. It was proof of what Maya had claimed all along, but could never prove in court. While Thor had been pacing and whining for days, his instincts had been guiding James to this secret. The dog's loyalty and sharp senses had saved the day. Meanwhile, Maya remained unaware of the breakthrough. She endured the harsh realities of prison, clinging to the memory of Thor's gentle presence and hoping for a miracle. The discovery of the footage was still a secret that could change everything, but only if it reached the right people. James immediately contacted Maya's legal team, sharing the footage and explaining Thor's behavior. The lawyers were stunned and energized by the find. They quickly prepared to file an emergency motion to reopen the case and request a stay of execution. Time was critical. Maya's execution was scheduled within days. Every minute counted as the defense team worked tirelessly to get the new evidence admitted and push for justice. Back in prison, Maya's spirits wavered between hope and despair. She thought often of Thor and how his loyalty had never faltered. She believed somehow that he was fighting for her in his own way. And now, thanks to Thor's strange behavior and James's determination, that fight was gaining ground. The hidden camera, a small piece of forgotten technology, was about to become the key that could unlock the truth and save a life. The moment James handed over the body camera footage to Maya's defense team, a new chapter began in the fight for her freedom. The small device, once forgotten and dismissed, now held the power to rewrite a story that had seemed written in stone. Maya's lawyers gathered in a dimly lit conference room, eyes fixed on the shaky images playing on the screen. As the video unfolded, it told a story no one had seen before. There was Maya, calm and composed, navigating the chaos of the pharmacy, with care. Customers argued and shouted, a man's angry voice rising above the noise, but Maya's expression was focused, almost gentle. She was trying to protect, not provoke. Then came the pivotal moment. The man who had been at the center of the confrontation suddenly appeared, but in the footage he was not the victim Maya had been accused of attacking. Instead, he was the one who dropped the knife on the floor, then disappeared from view quickly and quietly. Maya bent down, reaching for the knife, not to harm anyone, but to secure it. The camera showed her hesitation, her care to avoid escalating the situation. The video was clear, undeniable, a truth that had never surfaced in court. The lawyers exchanged looks of disbelief and relief. This was the breakthrough they needed. They immediately drafted an urgent petition to present the footage to the judge and request a halt to Maya's execution. Time was precious, but the evidence was powerful. Meanwhile, the media caught wind of the new development. Stories of a loyal dog leading to a hidden camera and a shocking revelation spread like wildfire. Public opinion began to shift. People who had doubted Maya's innocence started to question the justice of her conviction. Letters poured into the courthouse urging for a second look. Back at the prison, Maya was unaware of the storm brewing outside. Her days were still marked by uncertainty and fear, but a spark of hope had entered the world, though she could not yet feel it. What kept her going was the thought of Thor and the bond they shared, the dog who had never given up on her. As the court reviewed the footage, expert witnesses were called to testify about the authenticity of the camera and the reliability of the images. The defense highlighted how the video contradicted the prosecution's narrative and exposed critical gaps in the investigation. The prosecution, caught off guard, scrambled to counter the new evidence. They questioned the camera's validity and tried to discredit the footage as tampered or unclear, but the video's clarity and timing were undeniable. It was a silent witness, capturing the truth as it happened. Slowly, the judge's demeanor changed. The weight of the new evidence was too strong to ignore. A stay of execution was granted. Maya's sentence paused while the case was reopened for a full review. For Maya, the news came through her lawyer during a brief visit. The hope she had almost lost was suddenly alive again. Tears filled her eyes as she thought of Thor, the dog whose instincts had led to this moment. She felt a renewed determination. This was not the end. James continued to care for Thor, proud of the dog's role in uncovering the secret. Thor, meanwhile, seemed to sense the change. His restlessness gave way to calm, as if he knew his mission was complete. With the court's permission, preparations began for a new trial or possible dismissal of charges. The defense team dug deeper into the facts, uncovering further inconsistencies and evidence of a rushed investigation that had overlooked Maya's true character and the chaotic truth of the pharmacy incident. Maya's story was no longer just about a crime and punishment. It was about a fight for justice against all odds. It was about loyalty, truth, and the unexpected ways a bond between a woman and her dog could alter fate. As the days passed, Maya found strength in knowing the truth was coming out. She wrote letters to fellow veterans, sharing her story and urging them to keep fighting no matter how dark the path. The secret hidden in that small camera was more than footage. It was a lifeline. And with it, Maya's life was no longer on the brink of death, but moving toward a future filled with hope. The courtroom buzzed with a new energy. Maya Henderson's legal team stood ready, armed with the powerful evidence from the body camera that had been discovered through Thor's unyielding loyalty. The fight for justice had officially begun again, this time on a much stronger footing. The judge had granted a stay of execution, buying precious time for the defense to build a case that could clear Maya's name. The air was thick with anticipation, as both sides prepared to face off once more. The stakes were higher than ever. Maya's life depended on what would happen next. Her defense attorney, Claire Reynolds, was a seasoned professional known for her unwavering dedication. She had poured herself into the case, driven not only by the legal challenge but by a deep belief in Maya's innocence. Now, with the body camera footage in hand, Claire had the key to unlock the truth the prosecution had ignored. On the first day of the reopened trial, Claire laid out the case with renewed confidence. She played the footage for the jury, each frame revealing the calm, controlled manner in which Maya had handled the tense situation at the pharmacy. The unknown man dropping the knife and fleeing before the police arrived was clear proof that Maya had not instigated violence. Claire's voice was steady as she described the context. The stress Maya had endured as a veteran, her ongoing struggles with physical and emotional pain, and how Thor had been her constant support. She reminded the court that Maya's actions were those of a person trying to protect herself and others, not of a violent offender. The prosecution pushed back hard, attempting to sow doubt about the footage's authenticity and Maya's intentions. They questioned the timing, the handling of evidence, and argued that Maya's fingerprints on the knife still implicated her in wrongdoing. But Claire was prepared. She called expert witnesses to verify the footage's integrity and presented new character witnesses who testified to Maya's honorable service and good nature. These testimonies painted a fuller picture of the woman behind the wheelchair and the headlines, a woman fighting to reclaim her life. Outside the courtroom, public interest surged. Support rallies grew louder, fueled by stories of Maya's military service and the powerful bond with her dog, Thor. Social media campaigns shared her story, urging fairness and compassion. For the first time since the incident, many saw Maya not as a criminal, but as a victim of circumstance. Back in prison, Maya held on tightly to this hope. The long days of isolation and fear were slowly being replaced by a fragile belief in justice. Letters from supporters and messages from fellow veterans reminded her she was not alone. James continued caring for Thor, who remained calm and attentive. The dog's strange behavior had been the catalyst for the discovery that could save Maya's life. James often whispered to Thor, "You did good, boy, you helped your girl." As the trial unfolded, more details emerged about the chaotic pharmacy incident. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses, overlooked during the first trial, showed the unknown man's suspicious behavior before the confrontation. Investigators began to question the thoroughness of the original police work. Slowly but surely, the prosecution's case began to unravel. The jury, once convinced of Maya's guilt, now faced evidence that painted a very different story, one of a brave woman caught in a terrible misunderstanding and fighting for survival. After several intense days, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on the foreperson as they spoke. Not guilty. The words filled the room with a wave of relief and emotion. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks as she realized she was finally free. Her journey had been long and painful, but through it all Maya's spirit had never broken. Thor's loyalty, James's persistence, and the unwavering dedication of her legal team had brought justice where it had once seemed impossible. As Maya stepped out of the courtroom, her wheelchair surrounded by a crowd of supporters, she looked at Thor, waiting faithfully nearby. In that moment, it wasn't just a victory in court, it was a triumph of hope, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between a veteran and her dog. The moment the verdict was announced, not guilty, a wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Relief, joy, and disbelief mingled in the air as Maya Henderson's supporters erupted in quiet applause. For years, she had lived under the shadow of a death sentence, but now, after a grueling battle, she was finally free. Maya's legs trembled slightly as her lawyer wheeled her out of the courtroom. The world outside felt different, brighter, warmer, filled with the promise of second chances. Reporters clamored for interviews, but Maya's gaze was fixed on one figure, Thor, her golden retriever, whose loyal eyes met hers with unwavering love. Reuniting with Thor was more than a simple joy. It was the restoration of a connection that had kept Maya grounded throughout her darkest days. Thor's gentle nuzzle brought tears to her eyes, washing away months of pain and uncertainty. The dog's silent understanding spoke volumes. No, words were needed between them. Back home, Maya began the slow, difficult process of rebuilding her life. She faced physical therapy to regain strength and mobility, but the scars left by trauma ran deeper than muscle and bone. Counseling sessions helped her confront the emotional wounds of war, imprisonment and betrayal. Yet Maya was determined not to let her past define her future. She started volunteering at a local veterans center, sharing her story to inspire others facing their own battles. Her voice, once silenced by fear and injustice, became a beacon of hope. Thor remained by her side, more than a pet, her constant companion and protector. Together, they navigated the challenges of reintegration into civilian life, each step forward a victory. Maya's case had drawn national attention, sparking discussions about how veterans are treated by the justice system, especially those coping with invisible wounds like PTSD. Advocacy groups rallied behind her, pushing for reforms and better support for veterans facing legal troubles. Despite the newfound freedom, Maya's journey was far from over. She worked tirelessly with her legal team to clear her record completely and seek justice for the flaws in the investigation that had nearly cost her life. The process was exhausting, but she refused to back down. Friends and family, some estranged, for years began to reach out. Slowly, bridges were rebuilt. Maya learned to accept support and love again, something she had pushed away during her darkest times. Throughout it all, Thor remained her anchor. The dog's keen instincts and unwavering loyalty had uncovered the truth and saved her from a tragic fate. Maya often thought about how a simple act of trust, Thor's strange behavior with the duffel bag, had changed everything. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the city, Maya and Thor sat on the porch of her modest home. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh grass. Maya looked down at Thor, who rested his head on her lap, eyes heavy but peaceful. "I'm free, boy," she whispered. "Thanks to you, I'm free." Thor wagged his tail gently, a silent promise that he would always be there, through every chapter yet to come. Maya's story became a symbol of resilience and hope. Her courage in the face of injustice inspired many, and her bond with Thor reminded the world of the extraordinary ways love and loyalty could change lives. The road ahead was uncertain, but Maya faced it with a strength born from survival, friendship, and the chance to start anew. Maya Henderson's life had been a whirlwind of hardships and miracles, but as the dust settled, she knew her journey was far from over. The courtroom battles had ended, the public had spoken, and the shackles of injustice were finally lifted. Yet, what lay ahead was a chance to rebuild, a new chapter waiting to be written. Her days no longer revolved around uncertainty or fear. Instead, they were filled with purpose and healing. Maya worked with veterans organizations, advocating for those who, like her, had faced the silent battles of war and the harsh judgments of society. She spoke openly about her experience, about trauma, loyalty, and the fight for truth. The community welcomed her as a symbol of resilience. Invitations to speak at schools, town halls, and veteran gatherings became frequent. She used her platform to raise awareness about the importance of mental health care for veterans and the need for justice reforms that protect vulnerable individuals. Maya's relationship with Thor grew stronger than ever. The dog, once her protector in war zones and during the darkest days in prison, had become her constant companion in freedom. Thor's presence was a reminder that no matter how fierce the storm, loyalty and love could light the way. Together, they attended therapy sessions tailored for veterans and their service dogs, reinforcing the healing power of their bond. The sessions not only helped Maya regain strength, but also deepened their connection, giving her new tools to cope with lingering pain. Maya also reconnected with her family. The years of silence and distance began to heal with every visit, call, and heartfelt conversation. Forgiveness was a slow process, but it brought peace she hadn't known was possible. On quieter days, Maya found solace in simple pleasures, reading on her porch, gardening, and taking long walks with Thor in the sea park. These moments of calm were victories in themselves, a stark contrast to the chaos she had endured. Despite the public attention and new opportunities, Maya stayed humble. She often reflected on how close she had come to losing everything, how Thor's instincts had uncovered the secret that saved her life. She credited her dog's unwavering loyalty for turning the tide, a silent hero in her story. One afternoon, as Maya and Thor strolled through the bustling city streets, a young woman approached them. She was a veteran herself, eyes filled with gratitude and hope. "Your story gave me strength," the woman said softly. "Thank you for fighting for us." Maya smiled, feeling the weight of those words. It was more than a victory for herself. It was a beacon for many. Her legal team continued to work behind the scenes, ensuring that the flaws in the original case were addressed. There were talks of policy changes inspired by Maya's ordeal, pushing for better protections and support systems for veterans facing legal challenges. Maya's case had become a catalyst, proving that even when the system fails, courage and loyalty could lead to justice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and purple, Maya sat beside Thor in her backyard. The dog rested his head on her knee, eyes full of trust and love. "I'm ready," Maya whispered, "ready to face whatever comes next." No longer defined by fear or injustice, Maya was a woman reborn, stronger, wiser, and surrounded by a community that believed in second chances. Her story, once filled with uncertainty and despair, was now a testament to hope, resilience, and the incredible bond between a disabled veteran and her loyal dog. Together, they had turned the darkest moments into a new beginning. The future was theirs to write.